dividing fractions. All right, so let's start off with the rule because it's important to understand the rules. So here is the rule when dividing fractions. All right, the rule is there is no rule. Oh no, we've been here before, right? The reason why there is no rule is because you can't divide fractions. I want you to write that down. You cannot divide fractions. You just can't do it. Now you can multiply fractions, but you can't divide fractions. Write that down. You can't divide fractions. So what do? If you can't divide fractions, then I guess you're going to have to do something so you multiply them. And that's exactly right. And that's what I'm going to show you. First, you need to know what a reciprocal is. Okay? A reciprocal is when you flip a fraction. Okay? Flip a fraction. So here is a fraction, 2/3. The reciprocal is 3/2. You flipped it. You put the numerator where the denominator is and the denominator where the numerator is. And that's all you do for a reciprocal. A reciprocal is just a flipped fraction. All right? So what is the reciprocal to 9/12? Say it. The answer is 12/9. That's the reciprocal. You know you have a reciprocal because when you multiply the two, the answer will be 1. Let's get one that's a little easier to see. Let's say we have 1. No, we don't want 1. Let's go with 2/5, and the reciprocal of 2/5 is 5/2. Now if I was to multiply these together, what would I get? I multiply across and I get 10/10. Well, when the numerator and the denominators are the same, that gives me 1. Okay, so you know you've done it correctly. The reciprocal is when you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, you get 1. All right? Well, what about whole numbers? Do they have reciprocals? Yes. So if I have the number 8, what do you think the reciprocal is for 8? You have to flip a fraction. Remember, all whole numbers have a 1 underneath. So the reciprocal for 8 would be, wow, that's a weird looking 8, 1/8. All right, remember, all whole numbers have a 1 underneath. So the reciprocal of 8 is 1/8. What if I have 1/4? What's the reciprocal of 1/4? Flip it over, you get 4/1. And isn't 4/1 4? Yep. Okay, so a reciprocal is just flipping a fraction or flipping a whole number. Okay, so when I said before, you cannot divide fractions. Let's write that again. You cannot divide fractions. So what do you do? If I have 2/3 and I want to divide that by 3/4, what do? Well, here is a little catchphrase that I want you to memorize. Don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. Yep, Do exactly what that says. Don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. And when we say second, we mean the second fraction. So for 2/3 divided by 3/4, don't ask why, just flip the second, 4/3, and multiply. Remember, you cannot divide fractions, but you sure can multiply them. Well, now I can finish this problem. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9. And is that in simplest form? Yes, it is. So that is the answer. So 2/3 divided by 3/4 is 8/9. Okay, go ahead and write down this problem. 4/5 divided by 2/4. And don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. Okay, go ahead and work this out. Rewrite 4/5. What do we do to the 2/4? Flip it. And we are not going to divide anymore, we are going to multiply. And now we multiply like we learned before, multiplying across. Numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. 4 times 4 is equal to 16. 5 times 2 is 10. Now, it's not in simplest form, it's also not a proper fraction. So why don't we first turn this into simplest form? They have 2 in common, so I'm going to divide both of them by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Alright, now I have to change it to a mixed number. 5 goes into 8 how many times? 1 whole time. And what's left over? 3. And the denominator stays the same. So our final answer to 4/5 divided by 2/4 is 1 3/5. Alright, I'm going to give you one to do by yourself. Okay, before you do one by yourself, I forgot, I want to show you a couple other ones with whole numbers. Let's start off with this one. Let's letter A here. 4 divided by 3/5. Don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. That means I leave the first one alone. 4, okay. 3/5, I'm going to flip it to 5/3 and I'm going to multiply. Now remember, we want to multiply fractions, so I put a 1 underneath that 4. And now I multiply across. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 times 3 is 3. 20/3. It is an improper fraction, so we need to change it to a mixed number. So I say to myself, how many times does 3 go into 20? 3 can go into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. And there's 2 left over, and the denominator stays the same. So there's my final answer to 4 divided by 3/5. Let's take a look at this one where the whole number is the second fraction. So 2/3 divided by 5. Don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. Alright, so that means we leave the 2/3 alone. And remember, all whole numbers have a 1 underneath, so when I flip it, that 1's going to go on top. So this becomes 1/5, and I multiply. Multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. Well, it's a proper fraction, that's good. And is it in simplest form? Yes. Okay. Now, let's give you some to do on your own. Okay, here are your 4. So pause the video and show all of your work. And remember, don't ask why, just flip the second and multiply. Okay, I'm going to do these one at a time, so you follow along and see where you made a mistake, if you made any. Alright, so if you're looking at 2/9 divided by 2/3, should have been 2/9 times 3/2, which will give me 2 times 3 is 6, 9 times 2 is 18, and this is not in simplest form because I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by, we could do it with 6. 6, alright, divide both the numerator and the denominator by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So your final answer should be 1/3. Alright, number 2. 7/2 divided by, 7/12 divided by 2. I'll leave the first one alone. 7/12. I'm going to multiply, going to flip this because there's really a 1 underneath it, and it becomes 7/12 times 1/2. 7 times 1 is 7. 12 times 2 is 24. Is this in simplest form? Yes, it is. That is our final answer. Over here, 5 divided by 1/4. I leave the 5 alone. I don't ask why. I flip the second. And when I flip the second, I get 4/1, which is really just 4. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could do it this way, but there is no reason. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 1 is 1, but this really is just 20. Okay. 7/9. I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to flip this to 5/3. 7 times 5 is 35. 9 times 3 is 27. I have an improper fraction, so I have to say to myself, how many times can 27 go into 35? It can go in one whole time. And what's left over? Now, if you want, you can plug into your calculator 35 minus 27 and see what you get, and you will get 8. And the denominator stays the same. If you want to make sure that you're correct, you could just give it a swirly. 27 times 1 plus 8, does that give you 35? And it does. So the final answer is 1 8/27. Alright, hopefully you did well. If you have any questions, please write them down so you remember and ask in the morning. Alright, good job.